Okay, everybody. Today I'm going to present on Pluto through the houses, and it's taken me quite a while to get my head around Pluto myself, like really understanding my own Pluto. But the more that I've gone into it, the deeper I've seen my own soul journey and how I'm evolving, and it's been the most useful exploration for my own life, and I think for others out there who some will know Pluto and their houses and where it's transiting and some won't. But I'm going to go with the slides here now and begin the show. So here goes. So in Pluto Innerly Evolutionary Astrology by house and by sign shows us our core evolutionary desire and intention. So it's one of the, for me, the biggest wake up in my own life to understand what Pluto does in my own chart. And here, this is from, let me just do this. Okay, so I can read it all. This is from Jeff Wolfe Green, chapter 1, page 1, which really helped me to understand the planets at a deeper level. Pluto correlates to the soul and evolution. And the question is, what is a soul? So according to many spiritual, religious, and metaphysical sources, including the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible, the soul is an immutable consciousness that it has its own individuality or identity that remains intact from life to life. In each lifetime, of course, the soul manifests a personality that has a subjective consciousness and unconsciousness. Saturn defines the boundaries of our subjective consciousness, that of which we are consciously aware, and Uranus represents the individualized unconscious, Neptune the collective unconscious, and Pluto the soul itself. Each personality that the soul manifests from lifetime to lifetime has an ego, the moon, that serves as a focusing agent to create one's own self-image. The moon is similar to the lens in a movie projector. Without the lens, there would be no picture up on the screen. Each personality has an intrinsic nature, an orientation that experiences life in its own unique way. Each personality that manifests relates directly to the evolutionary necessities of the soul. The soul, through the personality, must experience life in particular ways in order to grow and evolve, and each personality created is directly linked to the past, evolutionary, and karmic history of the soul. So I'd suggest that one has this book because it's, for me, given me a lot of growth. Jeff Wolfe Green, chapter 1, page 1, Pluto, the evolutionary journey of the soul. So the next slide is here. And what we have is Pluto holds a connection to the soul and holds the soul's underlying evolutionary desires. It is the depth of our unconscious and out of our awareness. We can often see that we may repeat unwanted patterns or experience the same repeating life issues. Our own Pluto placement and our transit holds information that, when understood, can smooth our passage through time. And I have found that myself, the more I've delved into it and understood it, it has eased my own passage through time. The soul's desire is to separate and individuate, but the ultimate desire is to return to source. The friction between these desires are where we experience being pulled towards something and also repulsed by something. I have seen this play out in my own life and also in matters of complex PTSD, which I call response, which many of us have. And I say that because we're all wounded at some level. We all have wounds, and when we look at our wounds, we get an opportunity to transcend the effects on us. And disassociating is a form of resistance and common among us. In our order to heal, we need to shine a light on our pain, and it is via our conscious awareness that we heal. Okay, next slide. So here, I will say this leaf was a friend of mine who's a photographer who took a picture of this leaf that they found, which is absolutely stunning. So I think Pluto, the decay, the rebirth, and a tree, like the leaves fall into the ground and bring back new, fresh life to all of us for our eyes to see. And here I'm saying it is good to view our own Pluto transit or solar return and aspects to see what is dying or stale, knowing that death and endings are part of the cycle. We can then look at what needs to end to allow for rebirth and regeneration to occur. In our lives, understanding what Pluto is doing in our charts via transits and aspects, and then in looking at our solar return placements, we can ease our passage through time. We all experience dark nights of the soul and the deeper self at various points in life. Our core experiences need to be examined so they can be thawed out. And I will add, I heard Simon Vorster say the word thawed out, which is really beautiful, that he brought that to light for me about the thawing out. Okay, next slide. So here's my chart, and you can see my Pluto's up there on the midheaven, and I have Pluto, a 9th house Pluto, and I'm currently having a 2nd house return, I'm having a 2nd house transit, but on the 21st of May, my upcoming solar return, Pluto will land in my 4th house, and I'm actually looking forward to that one in a big way after reading up on it. It's going to be quite a defining point in my life. My current solar return ending Pluto, the one that's ending now, has been in my 6th house, where in the last year I have been purifying my life and my body and sorting out new ways of doing things and routines and being of service. And it's, again, that's really played out, the 6th house Pluto played out where I stopped eating meat this year, and I didn't do it on purpose. I began eating different foods, and I began looking at my life and releasing things that weren't working. So beautiful purification that I'm coming to the end to. Next slide. Again, this applies to Pluto for me. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And it's taken me years to understand what that meant. But definitely that has been well understood after my Chiron return of a year and a half ago, coming up 2 years. I really get that now. And here's a beautiful picture of Jung when he was younger with his wife, Emma. We can see how this statement has a direct connection to Pluto. And also another saying was, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. So that, again, to me relates to Pluto. Resistance determines the magnitude of our problems or confrontations. So again, the more we delve into our Pluto, we're going to have the tools and understanding we need. Okay, next slide. So Pluto is a deep unconscious process, and the good news is that we do have free will. When we objectify our lives via our chart, we can speed up our own evolution via understanding of what is occurring, and then we can release our resistance. So by looking, we get a chance to objectify and release resistance. Jeff Wolfe mentioned asking the question, why am I here? And I'll just add there that I do think that we all get to that point when problems keep repeating themselves, that we do ask that question naturally. With this question, we begin the journey and evolving and then aligning with our true path, which is that of our soul. The attraction-repulsion dynamic is linked with our dual desires that are inherent in each soul. Repulsion will be experienced via desires and attraction to anything that is other than a return to source. And in looking at my own life, I can see how seeking outside myself has often led to separation from source. And the ultimate lesson is that which we seek is not outside ourselves. I would also apply that to past addictions that I've had myself, and belief systems and conditioning, also where treatment received by others through my life was not of source, but of separation and the experiencing of abuse, abandonment, and betrayals. And it really has, evolutionary astrology has really eased my soul and my feelings with regard to life. It's like it's given me so much, it's brought so much light into my life. I can't, there's no words for it, but here goes. Now I'm adding here, which is interesting for people, many people in evolutionary astrology will know this, but for those that don't, that we have generations in Pluto. And this is just an overall one for people to educate themselves a bit more and understand that these are the generations. Pluto in Cancer, 1914 to 1939. Pluto in Leo, 1937 to 1958. And Pluto in Virgo, 1956-1972. So I'm a Pluto in Virgo, and Pluto in Libra, 1971 to 1984. Pluto in Scorpio, 1983 to 1985. And Pluto in Sagittarius, 1995 to 2008. And Pluto in Capricorn, 2008 to 2024. And of course, any babies being born, you know, now, today, they're going to have the Pluto in Capricorn. Next slide. Mankind is engaged in an eternal quest for that something else he hopes will bring him happiness, complete and unending. For those individual souls who have sought and found God, the search is over. He is that something else. And that's Yoganda said that. And again, I don't think, I will add that my idea of source is not, you know, the idea of returning to source is not death, it's returning to source whilst in human form. And that's how I see the idea of returning to source. It's not something that happens when I leave here, it's something that I'm returning to source whilst in human form. I think that's important. And I don't know how other people might view that idea of what returning to source means, but maybe we can look at that in the questions and answers. And here, I've got I love this picture of the planets, and the natal chart, of course, represents the total potential of what the individual has been and can become. Transits, progressions, and solar returns correlate to the development timing of our life events. We experience or manifest various dynamics at certain times because we are ready, in a karmic or evolutionary sense, to deal with these issues or dynamics. Clearly, what we are working with is an evolutionary process experienced in two essential ways. We have one, which is cataclysmic evolution, and two, slow yet steady evolution with respect to the evolutionary process. Pluto, more than any other planet, seems to prepare the individual for the necessary changes to come, and herein lies a key. Choices can be made that will determine the intensity and quality of the necessary karmic and evolutionary events themselves. And again, this is from Wolfe Green, Pluto 1, Chapter 4, page, can't see that bit there, page 305. So again, if you haven't got the book, I highly recommend getting that book. And we have the next slide. So here we have the three reactions to evolutionary impulse. People tend to react to their evolutionary necessities and karmic requirements in one or three ways. One will be to resist the evolutionary karmic requirements altogether, which I think a lot of people will do and do. We can see it around us. And I do it myself sometimes, or have done. Two, to respond wholeheartedly and desire to understand what the lessons are for this life and go for it in a totally non-resistant way. And I will add here that by knowing, we release that resistance. And this is why evolutionary astrology is very important, and the study of it and understanding of it. And for those who don't understand it, there is a reason behind this. And three, to be willing to change in some ways, yet resist other dynamics because of the fear of the unknown. So that resistance, or the beliefs that we hold. The first response is a reflection of the desire to maintain a separateness from source. The second response is a reflection to know the source. And the third response is a combination of both. And I got lost there, and it is most common, and it is the most common choice. So yes, because we're human and we're emotional, we tend to bounce around on that one. And I think for me, you know, it's a combination of both. We change a little each lifetime. This is why evolution of the soul, the progressive elimination of the separating ideas, is such a slow process for most. So Wolfe Green, Pluto, the evolutionary journey of the soul, and that's volume 1, page 27. Okay, next slide. here. And we have that in evolutionary astrology, with regard to Pluto, we allow for a 5-degree orb prior to the exact aspect or house crossing and after the exact house or crossing has occurred. And now I'm going to go through the houses. I would say that I did get that from the book, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that's Pluto. It's 5-degree orb on the Pluto transits. So here we have Pluto transiting the first house. And Pluto here is about new actions and desires. It's a crisis of identity. A crisis of identity can occur, and a desire to break free of the past and away from anything that prevents growth. Our past equals security and familiarity. Urges here are not formed thoughts, and here have no defined outcome. This is the unknown and the new. Here is about discovery. Fear can be experienced due to the current lifestyle being threatened, the big finding out, who am I? Here we are to follow our instincts, and therefore trying to rationalize is pointless. The why we desire something becomes apparent through time. Here we need to listen to our gut instinct, and if we hear a no, to take that on board also. Our instinct and impulses will lead us to what is new and fresh, allowing the rebirth of something new to come into our lives. Here we can be anxious, restless, impatient. We can have anger, and there could be projection onto others. An important time to watch how we treat ourselves during this time, and any past suppressed anger may arise at this time, and we can draw in things that make us angry or receive angry reactions from others. Here we've got this flower that you can see, and this flower is the freshness and the new beginnings, and it's a friend of mine took that picture. It's very beautiful, and it represents the birth of a beautiful blooming flower. Moving on to Pluto's in one still, we need to observe self-created conditions. This time allows for a purging of one's anger from their psyche, which can include past lives, a time to resolve old issues. We can also see how this can cause relationship problems, being with intimates or casual. If growth is prevented in relationships, there will be problems. If one fears or resists the needs and the process of initiating new actions or desires that lead to self-discovery or independence, then confrontations can occur. Confrontations allow for the person to break free and allow one to become independent and allow for assertiveness to take hold. It may be a time where bonds are broken to allow for needed change. Trusting one's gut is imperative here. Some will have partners who will encourage growth, and people from the past may appear to allow for intellectual and spiritual and physical new discoveries. One may attract new relationships, so that which is not being fulfilled can be fulfilled. It is also it is important to be transparent here, also not to create negative karma if with another. Duration of relationships are not as important here as the quality, and new discoveries and knowledge can come through others to look to see what feels good, right, and growth orientated, and that there is support. Physical problems that prevent growth need to be looked at, and we must follow through on our instincts and soul desires to initiate and implement new direction, releasing old dimensions and attitudes. Okay, so I believe we're going to go to Pluto in 2 now. And Pluto in 2, here we have a metamorphosis that is occurring on how one relates to self and others. It is a reevaluation of values and intense self-examination. Our inner confrontations allow us to eliminate and transform our perception. This can be a time of breakdown and loss of personal meaning. Meaning is linked to our values and how we relate to ourselves. When we confront our value systems, we evolve and flourish in new ways. How much conflict and resistance depends on our own nature. We can be willing to change or unwilling. If we are fixed on our value systems, then the resistance will be strong. When we are open and mutable, then we flow with change. We need to look at what house and sign our Venus is in and aspects here, as the 2nd and 7th house show us more detailed information. One may become aware of new personal resources within where they can make a living or redefining what they currently do. There can also be a feeling of not being able to create or relate to how they currently make a living. Again, loss of meaning, and loss of meaning allows for confrontations to occur, so the consciousness expands and allows for new ideas to spring forth. There can be a reforming that reflects what is new. There may be a confinement inwardly and outer, and there could be forced removal of existing resources, loss of money, possessions, situations that provide sustainment. This could be a job, relationship, and conflicts with regard to money. Next slide. All that occurs allows for a redefinition of one's values and also allows one to relate to self and others in new ways. Here we are looking at self-reliance, self-containment, self-sustainment is the evolutionary lesson here. Emotional losses allow us to examine and to look at reasons and the dynamics that have created conditions. Shocks can cause isolation, which allow for new responses and new values and a learning of how to relate in new ways. Here, new resources can come and new means. This also allows one to look at the denial of one's inner needs and any blockages. A new time, I've lost myself there. One can unearth new talents, and often force removal can assist in the discovery of what is new. A new time for developing and expressing one's values leads to new ways of relating. The actualization of new ways of making money and new ways of looking after oneself. For some, there can be rewards for past efforts and past life recognitions and new conditions. This is a time to release all old possessions, values, associations, and the way in which one relates to self and others, to allow for that what is new to manifest. An emptying out of the past to be filled with all that is new. This is what we're manifesting here. An emptying out and resistance promotes problems. In non-resistance, we regenerate and transform and increase our vitality and well-being. Okay, next slide. So here, this is the 3rd house, and it's about communication. And we can see here that Pluto here will confront intellectual structure and organization and a reorientation, a time to examine personal opinions and the basis of opinions. There can be a collapse of intellectual and logical connections and a repositioning. There can be intellectual disagreements or arguments. Circumstances and events can be drawn that will challenge the opinions. Where there was agreement, disagreements may now permeate. This is a time of harnessing new points of view and an increase in their intellectual framework so that life can be seen in new ways. This allows for the elimination of worn-out thoughts and ideas about reality or the nature of things. It also allows helps to reawaken why we think about things the way we do. It allows for the awareness of why things have been organized in a particular way intellectually. The mind is now deepening and the releasing of all that is superficial with regard to ideas. The deepening of the mind occurs via examination and by looking at the base of how one thinks. Jeff Wolfe Green in Pluto, Volume 1, states that these 3 states will progressively be experienced. So I'll let you know, I'm going to have a sip of water. And then we'll go on to the states, what Jeff Wolfe says. 1, the need to eliminate outright certain opinions, mental attitudes, points of view, or a whole system of intellectual organization. And 2, the need to reformulate or deepen certain ideas about the nature of reality that can still be relevant and functional. And 3, the need to reach out for new experiences that allow for new ideas, information, and knowledge to come. Here we have feelings of being cramped or intellectually stifled may come up, and boredom and feelings of restlessness. This time can feel threatening, that which is connected with the organization of one's ideas and opinions around that. Changing our ideas can feel risky and affects our emotional security, and resistance can be created to the needed transformation. And still, we're Pluto 3 here. Our degree of resistance controls the degree of conflict we will experience inner and outer. New information is needed from our outer environment to allow for new ideas to surface from our inner depths. There may be irritation around superficial explanations with regard to opinions of others. Any outer explosion from you or in you will be that of also be experienced outwardly. So that's what I'm trying to say there with regard to shallowness of mindlessness of others. So we'll be picking up on, you know, that inside us, and then we'll have it reflected back to us. If we explode, we'll see that in others too. There's an inner desire for new information, and a scattering of energies will deepen. A reorganization is taking place that needs to occur. This is about building new foundations through new ideas. Travel here can create new patterns of thinking. Movement allows for us to deal with new thoughts, new experience, information, conversations. The need for travel will be cyclical, and time alone will also be needed to digest and discover new thoughts and perspectives. It is an important time to be aware of those cycles and work with them. This time is to expand our mental horizons and to rid oneself of obsolete thinking and opinions, and to think through and discover new ways of thinking, a time of self-realization. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. And here we have the fourth house. So this picture, it might look a bit scary, but it's the ground being removed. And I have this upcoming, and I'm quite excited about this in my solar return. Because it's well overdue and well needed, and I feel empowered at this time. I think it's already kicked in. So here we have Pluto transiting the fourth house, or solar return it can be. Pluto here will be a time of examining one's emotional security and what forms the base of emotional security: self-image, feelings, moods, and dependencies. A time to examine one's early life and upbringing, looking at the impact as mirrored through parents. This will also apply to those that are parents and how they respond to their own children. This cycle is an ending chapter and a beginning, a new phase, a time of elimination and change, and a releasing of all forms of dependency and emotional security, dependency linked to external situations. For many, this period can feel very difficult of the removal of the foundations. When the foundations are gone, we get to see ourselves fully. Self-image for all has been conditioned, and Pluto here allows for a new self-image to be formed. One self-image is a reflection and blend of our nature and the totality of our reality that we've experienced. When all is removed, the individual can and is forced to examine all conditioning. Emotions may surge from the inner depths and be reflected back. The examination of how one's life has been put together and the looking at the reasons, a time for changing old habits and behavior, and a time we change the emotional responses towards oneself and others, a clearing out of all external dependency with regard to emotional security. And there can be a loss of work, a family member, confrontations of an emotional nature. And we go on here. This process is one of emotional cleansing and releasing of emotional patterns from many lifetimes where one has been stifled what has been denied. Each shift and emotional intensity are moods and feelings, and emotions encourage awareness consciously, the removal of old ways of responding to life. Self-absorption must occur. It is the way an individual can examine the basis and cause and reason for emotional responses, demands, security equations, self-image, and the impact on the early environment and any personal stagnation. Stagnation advances the opportunity to change. Issues not resolved can show up as irrational behavior and be compulsive. A perfect time here to terminate and end relations that are too difficult to resolve, and a time to reflect and do this consciously. A total look at every event, the circumstances and situations that occurred in life to date. It's a view of all the inner dynamics and the purpose of becoming aware of one's inner nature and the structure. One must communicate that which is to be and is you're allowing to be dissolved from your inner depths. And the purging cleanses the emotional structure. Okay, here, next slide. This is still Pluto in 4. One must express in order to not implode. One will require one other in the immediate environment who can be trusted and who is mature enough to allow this process to take place. There can be super sensitivity or an intense feeling of being vulnerable. Emotional needs can seem childlike, and the age does not matter around this. Those in close contact need to help minimize external dependency. Here we have a total rebirth of the inner and emotional structure and self-image, the releasing of old emotional patterns, and the minimization of external dependencies equates to a rebirth, a brand new start, and a new chapter in a person's life. Okay, so here we have 5. I think when I get to 6, if anybody's got any questions, and then we can maybe go from there. We'll decide as we go here. So Pluto transiting the 5th, and again, solar return. And I love the picture here of this beautiful lion, and I like pink as well. I love that dress. So here we go. Pluto here will be a time where the person will learn to take charge of their reality, to allow for new creative impulses to force from deep within the soul. These impulses are linked to the person's life purpose, an examination of how one has been giving to others, a look at personal needs, the looking at needs and the need to receive attention and love from others, a time to know one is special and important, a time of creativity, a time of deep inner inspiration, an impact of desire upon the conscious awareness. This is a time for taking charge of one's personal reality and destiny. One may appear more self-centered. For others, a release of being self-centered. This time will allow for new experiences and impulses to occur. Beliefs and preconceived ideas may fall away. The inward changes will be reflected in the outer. Outer conditions will show up based on a person's reality up to this point in life. A child can be counted as personal creativity, as in giving and receiving, and one can focus solely on a newborn, for instance, which removes self-centered tendencies. This is a time indicative of pregnancy or babies through affairs or karmic connection. For some, pregnancy can have a karmic ties for both mother and father, and this is a time of confrontations, also difficulties with one's own children. Children of parents may desire or show new creative purpose. And here again, 5. Changes can create a test of wills. Some will require freedom to follow their desires. The good thing is we do not need to we need to realize that confrontations allow for us to examine and reconstruct our lives, restructure. There can be attractions to others where in relationship a person may feel unacknowledged within an existing circumstance. There will be the possibly attraction to others and those who promote and help with their needs. Love affairs often satisfy others' needs in feeling special and a feeling of importance. Magnetism can attract others, and some may be binding and some breathe. If one is already in a relationship, this can affect the situation. One can be in love with both, like have something going on where you love your partner and you love someone else, for instance. The partner, if one has a partner, our partners must allow the person with Pluto here to self-actualize. So again, knowing this, it can be helpful because then you can let your partner know this information, which helps them to support you at this time. We've got here this time also, don't lose myself, this is a time for a person to find new purpose, and if rejected, this will cause a parting of ways, as this time is of self-actualization, and it cannot be avoided and it cannot be resisted. New power is found in the soul. When we take care of our own personal reality, we flow, and when we resist here, then we are blocking ourselves and we will feel suffocated. It is important here we get to creatively express. Okay, so 6th house. Okay, so this is purification, and this is what I'm coming to the end to in the solar return that I've just had, because my birthday is on the 21st of May. So I'm still in this process, but I can feel the work here has been done. And I like the picture, it's the purification of light. So Pluto here is about self-improvement, inner self-analysis, and looking at all in one's life to see what is to be discarded that no longer works. A time of reshuffling information and the way in which things are done. This can be a time of criticism of self. During this period, one will purify on all levels, the body and the soul and the mind. For some, circumstances may get worse before they get better, and I can vouch for that. They did get worse before they got better. The things that come up, this was in my solar return that I refer to mainly. The things that can come up can be feelings of being impure and inadequate. When we experience inwardly, what we experience inwardly is reflected by the outer circumstances. And when we project, the same vibration is often projected back to us. Self-doubt sparks adjustment inwardly and allows for new thoughts, feelings, and ideas. This is generally a time of crisis. And again, this time allows us to adjust our inner selves and compass to reset. Here we get to release ideas and beliefs, a time to look at our attitudes and our preconceived ideas. Change breaks down the original structures and ways of being and thinking. Our inner and outer security will change, and a restructuring of our thinking will occur. And we can take this on board because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo here. And as it says, Mercury, the Virgo side of Mercury here organizes information and boxes and classifies information, and the Gemini side of Mercury collects and needs information in order to make logical connections. Virgo wants the facts and the details on how one thing connects to the next. When we mentally connect, then pictures form. So here we go on. This is a time of bringing in new knowledge, which changes our reality by putting things together in a different way. A look here at what is not working anymore, a purging. Here the past and future bang into each other to be brought to the surface. And when resisted, there can be irritability, anxiety, and nervousness. Our mental stress manifests in the body. One may feel underappreciated for the levels of work carried out, and one may feel limited, which causes feelings of being suppressed. Here one can look at any criticism from others and reflect upon that. As we are growing and transforming, there is no need to feel guarded, irritated, but we probably will. But I found when I've had criticism, it's like I've learned to not take it personally, because sometimes it can be very helpful and help us grow. So information from others and circumstances can be used to look at what changes we can make. And this is a positive time where the body and our mind and soul is being purified, a time of regeneration. There may be a change of work and a time of creating new foundations, and a time of transforming from the past to the future. One can clean up their diet and foods, body care can be upgraded, and also self-care. All that is old is being left behind, and all that is no longer of use is being discarded after this period. One will feel alive and passionate about the future. And actually, I do feel that. And I would like to say, Linda, I don't know if anybody there wants to say anything to me at this point. So let me have a sip of water. Okay. Sorry, the bang of the glass there. Now we're going on to the Pluto transiting the 7th house. And Pluto here is about...
Sorry, Penelope. Did you ask a question? Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying if anybody... I was having a sip of water, so I said if anybody wanted to say anything, they could at that point.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so here, Pluto transiting the 7th house. Pluto here is about close relationships and partnerships, a time of evolving how we approach relationships. Our attitudes and our needs and values are being looked at here. Here we have Venus connection, as Venus rules Libra. Here we may see past life connections and renewals in connections from relationships that occurred earlier in our life. It is important to look at Venus connections here to see if aspects are harmonious or stressful, so we know what we are dealing with. Stress means something is unresolved and needs to be resolved. The non-stressful aspects will point to new messages that are needed, and resistance can be felt around unresolved issues. The past needs to be resolved so we can move forward. When the past is cleaned up, then new experiences can be experienced and fully integrated. The past can affect the future. Confrontations, and it does clearly, confrontations or clashes are not all negative, as they allow for new cycles to be born and for the transformation to occur in our lives. Because we are dealing with individuals here, each case will vary. You know, one-to-one, every relationship we have with another is completely different, as we all know. So again, we've got synastry charts can show what needs to be addressed or what is being addressed, but clearly this is dependent on knowing the time and birth details of another to get the full picture. Resolving past issues is the main theme here, a time to not react, but to look how we act, and contemplation will help here. Often we react to a person in stressful confrontation in the same ways due to triggers or other circumstances that are unhealed. To heal these wounds, we need to react in a new way, and here we may also end bonds and if we do, it's got to be done in a clean manner because for the karmic reasons. The point will be to resolve and release. When we resolve with another, some relations may flourish as the resolution then allows for new needs to be redefined and met. Thought out responses instead of reactionary responses work better here. This is a time of change and having our needs met. This will also apply to others who are in relationship with us, wanting their needs met. So it's not a one-way street here, it's about integrating our reactions. Stressful aspects here can cause confrontations, and non-stressful aspects allow for growth. And this is a time still in the 7th house. This is a time for our updated and new essential needs being brought to light, and done consciously, we get to transcend and evolve and to have our new needs met. This also applies to the needs of others. Needs not being met in a relationship leads to endings and breakdowns in communication. And if we look back on our lives, we can see that, you know, when relationships end and when new relationships are formed, it's to do with our needs. It's quite beautiful to see it that simply. So needs not being met in relationship leads to endings and breakdowns in communication, and new people will come into our lives at this time, and it is important to look at all our interactions with others from a karmic point of view. If we have come to a point of no growth with another, we need to be straightforward in our dealing and break in a clean way. New intimate relationships should not be started until matters have been dealt with in the current intimate relationships. It is more appropriate karmically to end relationships with no hard feelings, but we all know how hard that one is. You know, it really depends on the other that we're dealing with. Time spent with another discussing differences may lead to a fresh start and new beginnings. We are all growing, and in order to resolve issues, we need to be transparent with another and each other. This is a time of listening and to take into account not only our own reality, but the reality of others also. In discussion and in listening, we learn what each other's needs are. Any restrictions or feelings of restriction may bring the relationship to an end, so that both individuals can then move on to those who can meet their needs. And the next slide is the 8th house. Another sip of water. Okay, so Pluto here is where we face all in us that is stagnated and stuck, where we are not growing. This can apply to the following areas, being our emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual life. This area also covers our work, family, money, relationships, and the things we own. It's where we are stuck. We are looking at redeveloping our lives and certain areas. It's about decay and rebirth and transformation. We can feel loss of meaning in any areas mentioned above, and that which is internal is reflected back to us via the external. Any confrontations allow us to redefine, and when we redefine, we have new meaning, and then we have rebirth. We will often be looking at areas where we have been limiting our growth, and where we have overinvested in any one area or more. Our lives play out based on our values, beliefs, and desires and ideas. Desires are our baseline. Life becomes sour when we know there is a better way, but we feel stuck. Outer circumstances reflect back to us what is taking place in our inner world. To change the base of anything can cause feelings of insecurity. You know, it's like that, taking a brick, out from the bottom of a wall, and it's like our security, everything falls over. To change the base of anything can cause feelings of insecurity, meaning the ways things have been held together. The importance we give to something can hold us captive and stop the natural flow in us. Our choices colour how life is experienced, and when we approach our lives positively and confront what needs to be confronted, transformation occurs. And again, resistance is the thing that holds us all back. New action taken with faith transforms us. The future is unknown, in that we do not know where our new actions are going to lead us. All knowledge of new implemented strategies come after the fact. If we listen to our soul, then we are not in resistance. We can feel the movement in our bodies of what repels us and what moves us. Not listening to the desires of the soul can create confrontations that force natural changes. Most of our messages do come through others and can be positive or negative. This is a time for eliminating all that is holding us back. And this is also a time for others, to allow for others' growth needs. When we change, it can affect others' security issues. So when we're changing, others are going to be affected also, causing fears and insecurity in them. This is also a time of reformulation, redefinition, and eliminating and getting rid of the outmoded ways of being and thinking. When we resist change, then we are forced by our outer circumstances. And resistance dampens our perspective and emotions get stuck. Resistance can pull us away from the light. Resistance can cause us to feel we have no power and leads to confusion. This is a time of purging all that is below the surface, and this also includes behaviours that have taken their hold in our subconscious. This is a time for digging and to shine a light on all areas of life, to see what is there that needs to be eliminated in order for transformation and rebirth to occur. Losses can occur, be it relationship, possessions, money, friendships, as the outer world reflects our inner world. There can be feelings of loss, and this is a time to objectify. Old wounds need to be dealt with so new understanding comes to the surface. Here we have the death of all that is old and a removal of internal and external walls. And when we re-identify with our new truth and the way of being, we will rise out of the ashes to a new beginning. So again, it's all beautiful with Pluto, however scary. When I first started looking at Pluto, it was a scary thing, but now I see so much beauty in it, the metamorphosis, what we're here to do on a soul level. So here I have Pluto in 9, and this picture is a sea of books and a sea of knowledge. And Pluto here is where We will experience general growth. And also, we will confront the limitations of our own philosophical ideas and beliefs. For growth here, one must use their inner guidance that will lead to initiation to the appropriate path. Here, one must find their own center. There may be visions and feelings evoked that are intuitive in nature. There may be visions of their future. New ideas and directions that are based on visions or intuitive prompts can be acted upon. Here, one must learn to trust impulses and have an intuitive nature. This is a positive time, and one which will be future orientated and optimistic. This is a time for putting into motion all that is new, and then a time for following through. Existing reality will need to be confronted in order to allow for the new to come in. The way in which we were shaped in the past may come into conflict with our new needs and desires. So one may draw events that will directly challenge what currently exists, and the outer confrontations will be a reflection, will confront our inner limitations. Outer confrontations will often be positive in nature. That's good to hear, hey? I have Pluto in the 9th house on my natal chart, so it was nice reading this too. But here we're doing transits and solar returns, okay? Others may want to point out the weak links in our position, and others will be truthful and sincere, and this is to encourage the person to evolve. The growth will come from the external environment, and Jupiter needs to be looked at here in our chart for deeper exploration of this and what's going on. This is a time of deepening one's intuitive capacity, and there will be increasing ability in understanding one's own reality now and all that has gone before. Okay, and Pluto in 9 still is what is known will appear into our awareness with this placement. The past will be felt as a restraint, and dissatisfaction can create restlessness at this time. Changes that are required will be broken down, will be known before the change itself. Meanings will be known, and the potential opportunities will also be known. Any attempt to hold on to the past will not work, as changes will occur anyway. It is a time of knowing that even if changes are hard, they must be made. All is known and all is in its unfolding. One may wish to be free of all that currently exists in their lives, but growth takes time in order to be digested and worked through. Uncontrolled growth can create problems. So being slowed down is a good thing here, because uncontrolled growth does create problems, clearly. And then we have, we need to know, we need a reason to wish for the new, so the old has a purpose as a baseline to what is new. So we need a reason. Beliefs will be expanded upon, including religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs. That which is spiritual and philosophical will be transformed. We will draw in the needed circumstances to show us our limitations. And when we have new realizations, we transform. This is an important time to listen to others' ideas in a responsive way, to consider all possibilities and not to react in a defensive way. So when people come up with new ideas, it's a good idea to listen and respond in a good way. If others' ideas fit, then they can be used and implemented into our lives. And here the experiences of growth that is intensified, and this is with optimism, intuition is intensified, and here one grows based on their karmic needs. So it looks like a very positive time with Pluto 9th house transit. Okay. And the next slide is 10. And here, Pluto in the 10th house. Pluto here is where old cycles and phases are coming to an end. Here we need active self-reflection in order to examine all internal and outer structures and realities experienced. In contemplation, we acquire new self-knowledge, and in looking at our structures of life, we can then begin to eliminate all that no longer applies or works. All patterns included to view will be emotions, our intellect, the physical, and our outer and our spirituality. Changes lead to new cycles. Here we can look and see where our responsibility lies. This is not a time for blame, but a time for deep reflection. Growth can occur, but existing responsibilities and any obligations must be looked at this time. This is also a time to look at our judgments, becoming aware of our own judgments and how that reflects on how we perceive or treat others. We all judge, but it's a good time here to really look at our judgments, okay? We can release behavior around judgments that no longer apply, and also look at old attitudes to see what applies and what does not anymore. Reflecting helps us to release all that is outdated, and we can also become aware of what is preventing our growth. This period of time can create a feeling of emptiness and or personal meaninglessness in us. You can be feeling weary with life, and this can lead to deeply reflecting and looking at what needs to change. It is a time for deep soul searching that will allow for one's life to be restructured so new meaning can be given. Okay, next slide. Here we want to become aware of how the past is playing out. This is a time for redefining of what is old so new structures can be built. Forms and structures shape our inner and outer reality. And also here the ruler is Saturn, so we can see, you know, the structures and the reality here. This is Pluto here covers our own authority and career. We need to ensure our career contains potential and allows for our own self-expression. If work does not fulfill us here, we must process and create and change this. This will mean finding a career or redefining our current one. One needs courage here. One must check in on judgment of self that are based on parental judgments or those from society. Unfair self-judgment can harm us. It is also important to look at the judgments eye to eye and eliminate all that which is stunting our own evolution. Some judgment is relevant, but most of our judgments are outdated and useless. Here we must put ourselves into action to evolve. And here we must, we'll have a total redefining, and we must eliminate all that is outdated. The positive here is that a new phase is beginning. One requires perseverance, self-determination, and to step into courage, and the new life will occur because it is occurring. Okay? And here we go on to the 11th house, and this picture, I wasn't 100% sure about it, but it's breaking free from consensus reality, 11th house being Aquarius, and not being stuck into the reality of others. Pluto here is where we sever all attachments that bind one from further growth. And actually the picture to me does, yes, breaking free. One may feel restricted by one's reality and cramped. The sense of being restricted will create inner compression in one's consciousness. Compression forces open one's consciousness. The wish and desire is for individuation. During this period, all that has been repressed, including past life memories and the future, come to the forefront. All that is coming to the surface is to allow the individual the required freedom from the past, the now that is binding them. This is a time of freedom from consensus reality. Here one will need to detach at regular intervals, and will have that need and desire deep within. Alone time is required here so that one can objectify and have space, and the space and time to view the dynamics that have led to this time. When none detaches, when one, I think it should say detaches, when one detaches, they can survey their life. And this time allows for dispassionate analysis, self-analysis to occur. One can feel insecure with regard to future thoughts and where impulses may lead. And one may feel that they have no control over their impulses, a feeling that impulses have a life of their own. Okay? And it is a good time to monitor any repetition and only go toward actualizing those thoughts that keep repeating themselves. The monitoring of external messages from others may also point to the future. Others are external guideposts, and others can validate us. The inner and outer conditions of anything concerning the past will need to be confronted in order to be free. Due to circumstance, one may have sudden clashes with friends or others, also karmic in nature, that have not been resolved. There will be an opportunity for resolution, so one can be free of karma. So really take that on board here. Confrontations allow for resolution. During this time, we can terminate that which is unresolvable, and that one is being held back. If one senses a natural parting of ways, also jumped there, but then it's a good time to end on good terms. But again, we know we can make the effort in this area, but when we're dealing with others, you know, anything can happen in endings. But if we know our own soul journey, then we can help ourselves at least and voice that to another. Here, it will be important to nurture relationships with those that allow and encourage one to grow and be oneself, where others allow for one to objectify and where individuation is being encouraged. So with the friends that do, you know, encourage you, do honor that as well. Be aware and look at who's who. The needed endings of some relationships will allow for new relationships to come in this period of time. And this is about an evolutionary leap. Okay, next slide. Others who have walked this path can assist. So there will be others who have already walked the path that you're walking in this transit. They will be able to assist in helping to reconcile the events taking place, and validation from others on this path, on the path, will allow for freedom from the past and assist in the shedding of all that prevents necessary growth. There may be a drawing of others who have the same needs. Some restlessness may occur inwardly, and this is also a time to encourage others' individuation and their own growth needs, even if this means termination. So if you have somebody who needs that growth, you know, look at it, eyes wide open here. It is important to not let others restrict one's growth needs here, but also not to restrict others. It is best to terminate on a good note and not create negative karma. A time of termination of what binds one to the past. A time to follow future-orientated internal and external messages that are repetitive, which allows for one's own large-scale evolutionary changes. Okay, so the 12th house, finally. Bless Pisces. That Pisces always has to wait so long here, but here we go. Pluto in the 12th house. There's my picture of a fish, and I like this picture, the fish and the little girl. So here we go. Pluto here is where an awareness occurs around one's own illusions, delusions and dreams. This will result in a need to acknowledge one's reality. Any dreams or wishes realized will be seen as experienced as less than one imagined they would be. Dreams and wishes that are separate in nature teach us there is something bigger than us. And we all know that one where we've really wanted something, and we've got it, and it's turned out that it wasn't so great. So dreams and wishes that are separating in nature teach us there is something bigger than us, a recognition that Source is the creator and we are not separate as co-creators, which we are. When we experience our dreams and wishes and see after the manifestation they are not our answer, we get the spiritual awareness that something bigger is at play. When we feel something is missing and feel alone, we realize deeply that what we seek cannot be filled by any external desire. With awareness, we get to see all our desires lead us only to temporary satisfaction. And how true is that, hey? And that's what I found, and that's the beauty of evolving, and that's the thing that I enjoy most about maturing and getting older, so to speak, seeing that. There is something more. If we need to spend time, if we're getting in touch with what our separating desires are, then we speed up our own evolution. The need to merge with Source can be experienced in this form, and it is experienced that by that which is not Source. So when something is not that, then we experience that which is. Our need to merge with Source can be confusing and create meaninglessness, feelings of alienation, disassociation from our now reality. We need faith to break down barriers. The evolutionary desire is to return to Source, and this can create fear in us. And again, it's that, releasing of knowing that what we seek is not outside ourselves, and that is the return to Source, part of that journey. So here, Jeff Wolfe says that the need to merge with source, the universal, requires that the individual leap into the abyss with faith, so that all barriers preventing this conscious union can be dissolved. Yet this evolutionary need is commonly met with resistance and fear. Just as the wave can resist returning to the sea for a time, so does the egocentric identification within the individual resist surrendering to the cosmic ocean of being from which he or she originated. And that's Jeff Wolfe Green, Pluto book, volume 1, 3, 4, 6. And the final bit of Pluto 12 here. Purging, this is the big one, needs to take place so that one gets to be free of all separating desires. Dream activity may be intense, and this helps with purging of the unconscious, the beauty of dreams. That's what happens. It's dreams that there's no separation in dreams to our reality. It's all one as well. Purging allows for new cycles of growth. A dream journal has been suggested during this period. And also Carl Jung had, the Red Book was his dream journal. I don't know how many are aware of that. It was his own personal journal, the Red Book. A dream journal has been suggested during this period. There can be sensitivity at this time with regard to the collective, divine illumination and revelation. During this time, it is helpful to have spiritual transcendental belief system, as this helps with consciousness development and allows for techniques to develop and allow one to see what is truth versus the illusions. Fears can cause a resistance to merging, and downtime is needed during this period, and internal time and external time needs to be balanced. This is a time to incorporate transcendental belief system, which allows for conscious awareness to allow oneself to know their spiritual identity. And here to see that we are co-creators along with source. You know, there is no separation. Any cycles of confusion or disillusion will lead us to signs that lead to ultimate meaning. And finally, the final slide here is the need to defend reflects the desire to maintain separateness. So Jeffrey Wolfe Green, Pluto 1, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul. And here, this says to me that the need to defend reflects the desire to maintain separateness. Means a lot to me, and you can figure out what that means for yourself. So that's it. That's my final slide. And here is basically my contact information. If I got on email, I don't know if anybody's there and they've got any questions on this. That's the final slide. So if anybody's there and they have any questions or related to the solar return placements, that would be good to talk about. I'll give it a minute.
I have a question. Did you also mention a progress chart as well, or is it just about?
Well, apparently yes. In the reading and the studying, there is progression, but I've got no education in that currently. So I would say yes, that in the Pluto 1 book, you will see that information, that progress chart, and it's something that I've not studied yet. Is that Delia? Is that Delia? Sorry, who is that speaking? Yeah. Della. So sorry, Della. So I don't know. Do you know anything about the progress charts yourself? Have you got any?
No, just not a lot. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding you're talking about transits and not progressions.
Yeah. Totally so in the book that with under this bit of the transits and the solar return and the progressions were mentioned as part of this. But I look forward to digging into that at some point. Where is your transit at the moment?
6th house.
Oh wow! Okay, when does it? So you've got 6th house. So I found that in my solar return, it's been really, I've really enjoyed towards the last couple of months of it.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's almost like I've really. Did you change any foods or anything? When did it start actually for you, the 6th house?
I guess it was 11 degrees. Capricorn is my cusp.
Okay. So
I don't know exactly when, but 2018, I guess. Maybe
2018.
Earlier.
All right, so you're fresh into it then, yeah? What have you seen going on there? Off you gone? Maybe I've
No,
lost.
that was just my phone beeping in.
Okay.
So much, but just what you shared, like I've been making healthier foods, kale salad,
Yeah.
smoothies, and I honestly had like a transition with housing that actually like kept me from my blender, like physically, and now I'm kind of just reuniting with that.
Get you.
So a lot of what you said
Oh,
really
it's so
resonated.
funny because mine broke down at Christmas. Mine, and I've been so into it, and it was new. You know, it wasn't old, so I had to. It went off for 4 weeks for a repair, and you know,
Yeah.
it was just like the awareness. And I stopped. You know, not intentional at all. It's like, you know, I've stopped eating meat. I mean, I'm just like, wow, where did that happen? How did that happen? And also, you know, a new career coming in and ending a business that I was in for, you know, over, 29 years. You know, incredible.
Yeah, I just changed careers January 1st. So
wow. Was it a big
Yeah.
change? A big change in career?
Huge.
Like,
Huge. I was a garden teacher at elementary school,
yeah.
and now I'm in legal cannabis market in California.
Fantastic. So, and you see,
Yeah.
that's been of service to the world. Hey, the Virgo in 6, people healing.
Totally. And then with my education background, that's what attracted the company to me, that I can teach people. There's a lot of new users, new businessmen, new salespeople who have no idea about agriculture. And since I have an education background, it's like perfect. Now I'm designing curriculums.
That's amazing. That's so
And
good
it was
to hear.
unexpected. Yeah.
So it's interesting how that development, and you know, and I think when we're purging and the pain, or just being human, we're all wounded. You know, let's face it, we're all wounded. And I think the looking at Pluto, it's, you know, I used to be afraid of Saturn, for instance, in my chart. I used to have a big fear of, you know, I don't know if you can still hear me, but I had this big fear, and now I'm at a point where I'm, you know, seeing the beauty that it is about transformation, and this stuff, you know, accelerates it for me. Thank you for chatting with me there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I'm going to stop share and stop recording, stop share. I think here we're going to go stop share. Okay, so there I'm back. So I thank everybody for going through this with me, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope it's helpful to all out there who are learning evolutionary astrology as well, and for all those who already know. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Ending recording now. Okay, I don't think anybody else is there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's still a few people
Oh,
here.
I was going to go. I was off.
Well,
I was going
would you
to
all?
where's your transit, Wanda?
I am in the 4th house.
Oh wow, because I'm looking
Oh,
so
excuse me,
good.
I'm sorry, 5th house.
A 5th house, okay. Now the 5th house, I have a friend who's got that, and I've watched. It's fascinating when watching people's lives play out. Like when you know where they're at. It's a beautiful thing. You know, not everybody's into it, so you can't really discuss it with everybody and say, hey, you know, do you want to know what's going on for you right now? But for me, I'm going to have it in 4th. It's going to land in 4th in my solar return, Wanda.
Okay.
So I'm excited by that, because you know a bit of my history and story. So I'm actually excited by this hitting my 4th house solar return.
Yeah. The what was said about the 4th house was spot on as far as the natal. I don't too much keep up with the solar returns or the progressions.
No.
But yeah, that I can definitely say, at least for me, his description of the transit through the 4th, it was absolutely, and whatever whatever you put in was absolutely spot on.
So let me get this again, because I miss it. So where your transit is in the 4th house.
No, I'm probably about 6 years out of the transit from the 4th. It's currently in the 5th.
Okay, got you. I get you now. But
so that's I didn't want to speak on the 5th house, because I feel like I'm still kind of new.
I think that's a good one. You know, it's beautiful to watch things play out, and I think also it really doing this as well also really put me in touch with my 9th house Pluto. I thought, oh wow, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, trusting my intuition instead of, because this tendency to ask others, you know, the Gemini thing, you know, what do you think? You know, because I'm so busy in my head, and really that I already know the answers. I'm not saying I know it all, clearly.
Yeah.
Ninth house Pluto.
Yeah, the transits do always relate back to the natal
Okay.
Pluto place.
So my second house has been fascinating for me. You know, I'm halfway through, just over, or no, halfway through. And again, you know, the losses and, you know, and now also coming into myself and not stopping seeking outside myself and catching myself when I go to seek outside myself now. And feeling a bit sorry for myself that I can't seek outside myself. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I've got a question for you. Linda is still recording, so this last part will go up on YouTube. Will that be okay?
That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I think it's good because people can see the reality of how this, you know, I think it's useful to people. I agree.
Oh, okay. When you had stopped your recording, I didn't know if if you didn't want the last part to go on.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have any questions?
Does anybody else have questions?
Because I'm not sure if she's in here.
Okay.
If not, I guess that will bring us to the end of your meeting. This was absolutely fabulous. I can't wait to go back and re-look at it, you know, again.
All right, that's brilliant news. Okay.
All right, we will see you all next time. Would you all please thank Penelope Ryder?
Thank you, Penelope.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you, Linda. Thank you.